Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, YouTubers. YouTuber singular. I had bad reception earlier. I was up in my recording studio slash bedroom, and I came down to go to bed, and army caught. And I'm gonna try. I tried about 6 or 7 times, and it just shut down all immediately. So I canned it. I should canned it. I'll try down here. Try to set up, but I don't know if I'm going to. Chapter 12. I gotta hold the book so I can read it. I don't have a tripod down here, so oh well. You don't have to see me. I is ugly anyway. I am not now what once I was, nor am I what I want to be. But what I am by grace, and when I see him face to face, I shall be like him perfectly. I like to say that to all the perfect people I know that hate me and look down on me and just, oh, shut up, Jerry, sorry. Okay, someone's going to read. You can listen to me or not. A fierce rain started on Saturday night when the smoke came out of the factory. The storm continued all day Sunday, but on Monday morning the sun was shining once more. Though it seemed like another normal day in Centerville, something deeper was happening in the town. In the months ahead, people would look back and remember that this was the day everything really began to change. After breakfast, Daniel finished reading a book about space probes and the newest kind of satellite weapons. He had read most of the book that weekend. His sister had already gone out that morning to a friend's house. Daniel sighed uncomfortably as he looked at the two bicycles in his garage. After staring at them a long time, he decided to walk to the library instead of riding either bicycle. As he walked along the street, the sun was already starting to get hot, but there was something different in the air that the boy couldn't put his finger on. I'm going to try to sit up, get some pillows and whatnot. Hang on. Oh, come on, man. And now a word from our sponsor, Aircore Walkaway Cookware. No, I'm just kidding. I wish I had a sponsor. Okay, where's my pillow? Oh my gosh. Okay, where's my grabber rubber? My thingy wingy grabber rubber. I got it. Okay. Think I can get the pillow with this. Uh, yep, I did. Okay. Might be in business here in a minute. Hang on. I don't know where my other cushion is. Oh, that's way over there. Maybe I can get that with a grabber rubber. A reacher geecher. Almost. Oh, no, 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 no. Come on. Come to Papa. No. God. I'm going to get it this time. No. Not quite. Oh, just screw my hand. Stretcher witcher. Come on. There we go. Oh yeah, I can't hardly see me anyway. I can't tilt the phone because it'll fall. I didn't think so. Oy vey, sorry about that. Waste of time. I gotta be able to read. I gotta hold the book so I can read it. Okay, you can see my bald head anyway. He's going to walk to the library instead of writing a needed book and return his book on space probes and satellite weapons. As he walked along the street, the sun was already starting to get hot. Yet there was something different in the air that the boy couldn't put his finger on. Things seemed unusually quiet. As he turned on 10th Street and walked toward the town square, he got an eerie feeling that something was. For one thing, a man in a car backed out of his driveway so fast that Daniel had to jump out of the way. The car then screeched toward downtown, going faster than the speed limit. Though Daniel had only been in Centerville just over a week, he knew that people didn't rush like they did in the city. As he got closer to the square, an older woman was walking briskly toward him. As she passed Daniel, she didn't even look at him. Her face and eyes were red as if she'd been crying, and she was mumbling to herself. Daniel stopped and turned to watch her. Something inside told him that the woman was afraid. Daniel began to slowly run along. As he got to the library, he was surprised to find a hastily scrawled note stuck to the front door. The note said temporarily closed. Daniel was thinking about the note when he heard a police siren. It seemed to be coming from the town square. So Daniel ran in that direction. When he got to the corner, he saw the commotion. A mass of people were crowded up in front of the Centerville Bank on North Street, north side of the square. The siren stopped. Cars were packed helter-skelter in the street, blocking traffic. People were shouting and talking. More adults were running up from all directions. A man in a uniform was on the front steps of the bank trying to talk to the people. I wonder if there's been a robbery, Daniel said to himself. He ran toward the crowd, forgetting about his limp. As he got closer, he could feel the fear in the air. It was so thick. Something was wrong. He wondered if someone had been hurt. Daniel ran up to an older man in blue coveralls who was standing on the back of his truck so he could see. So he could get a better look. What happened? Daniel yelled up at the man. The man didn't even notice him. Daniel then ran into the crowd. Sheriff Kramer was yelling at people from the front steps of the bank. What happened? Daniel said to a woman in blue dress. Has there been a robbery? The woman looked out at Daniel impatiently, as he pulled in her arm. Has there been a robbery? Daniel repeated. No, the bank is closed, the woman said. Then she looked up and yelled something. The bank is closed, Daniel said to himself. He thought for a minute. So what? He wormed his way through the crowd. He saw George, the deputy, in his wheelchair up on the steps by Sheriff Kramer. George held a shotgun across his lap. The deputy was watching the crowd carefully. I'm sure you'll be getting your money, Jesse, Sheriff Kramer said, was shouting at someone in the crowd. Daniel shoved his way through the crowd bodies. Most of the adults didn't even seem to notice the boy, even when he stepped on their toes. Daniel kept pushing and squeezing through holes until he got up to the front of the crowd. George looked at him but didn't smile. You better go home, George said quickly. This is no place for a kid. The bank is closed and this could get ugly. Go on now. Get out of here. You're just a kid. Get out of here. Daniel was about to ask a question, but he saw that it was probably useless. He inched his way through the crowd, still rather confused by all the commotion. You could almost smell the fear, like a living thing, like a rotten thing. When he finally broke free, he saw more people, mostly adults, driving or running toward the bank from all directions. Then he saw a black limousine move slowly down 10th Street. For a moment, he thought he saw his mother in the back seat. So he, I hate reading with flashlight. Of the long black car, but as he ran closer, the car sped up and moved on. Daniel stood on the south edge of the square for some time, just watching the people gather around the bank. Then he noticed Mrs. Gardner, the head librarian, walking up the library steps. Daniel ran to catch up. She was locking the door from the inside when Daniel knocked on the glass. We're closed, she said. But I want to know what's going on, Daniel yelled so she could hear him through the glass. Mrs. Gardner hesitated and then opened the door. Daniel walked in and she locked the door. Everyone says the bank is closed, but what's the big fuss about? Daniel said. Mrs. Gardner walked over to the library desk so slowly that she seemed half asleep. She picked up a newspaper and gave it to Daniel. He stared at the bold black headline, Bank failures feared. Money panic hits major cities. Mrs. Gardner slumped down into her chair and put her face down into her hands. Her shoulders shook for a moment. Daniel got more and more afraid as he watched. He started to read the story in the paper. Although he didn't understand all the talk about national debts and the banking systems and failures, he slowly began to realize why people were so afraid. Most people kept their money in the banks. What idiots. Sorry. That was edited commentary. When banks went out of business, they were afraid they would lose all their money. Mrs. Gardner looked up. I remember the Great Depression, she said softly. I was only a little girl then, but I remember. They say this will be worse, much worse. So many rumors of wars. Daniel quickly read more of the newspaper as Mrs. Gardner seemed to stare out into space. All the stories seemed to be about money, inflation, banks, and problems in the government. There were also a lot of news items about between countries with hard to pronounce names, fighting each other and terrorists, shipping lanes, oil production, and other things. Daniel was a good reader, but he didn't quite understand what everything meant. All he knew was that things in the world, and even in Centerville, had somewhat gotten bad in a very short period of time. I better go home and see what my mother says about all this stuff, Daniel said. Mrs. Gardner nodded. She walked wearily, shuffled to the front door and unlocked it for him. Daniel had run halfway up the block when he realized he still had the book on space probes under his arm. He quickly decided to just keep running. The hell of it. Daniel and Denise had already fixed sandwiches and soup for lunch by the time their mother arrived. Denise was quite scared when Daniel filled her in on the things he had read. He had also been watching the news on television. All the big stations and TV channels had interrupted the regular programs with news bulletins and stories. Daniel listened to the talking politicians and business leaders and tried to understand what was happening. His mother walked into the house. She looked tired, the boy thought. She put down her briefcase and plopped down into a chair at the kitchen table. Water break. What did I say the other day to you, Gad? About people that they say this is in Cliffhanger. I could find it on one of my texts or message, but it said, I think it was in Cliffhanger with Sylvester Stallone. The guy said, you kill a few people, they call you a murderer. You kill a few million people, they call you a politician. Another name for politicians. When you do enough evil in the world, you get to be a politician. Water. Wet my whistle. A couple more pages, I think. A lot of bad stuff was happening all over, isn't it? Daniel asked his mother as he pushed a bowl of soup in front of her. Yes, there's trouble, she said carefully, but it's not the end of the world. But I heard there's all these wars and things, Denise whined. I'm scared. I'm scared, Mommy. Will it happen here too? What a sissy that girl is. Not a good prepper or survivalist at all, huh? Denise pushed her chair over closer to her mother's. Mrs. Bailey reached out and patted her arm. Not in Centerville, the mother said. It's not that bad in our country. Only the banks and businesses are in trouble. Is there money in the Centerville bank? Daniel asked. Yes, it is, Mrs. Bailey said. Or at least most of it is deposited there. However, Mr. Cutright down at the factory said there's nothing to worry about. He said that Goliath Industries will probably buy the bank. So we won't lose our money, Daniel asked. Of course not, Mrs. Bailey said. He said it will reopen in a day or two, and then things will be back to normal, more or less, as long as you're on the board. The government is helping out. All the stores are closed, Daniel said, and even the big supermarket is closed, I heard. Comment here, Ronnie Reagan said that the 7 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm here from the government, I'm here to help you. I'm from the government, I'm here to help you. Yeah. The government's helping out. Well, we don't want your help. You're right, his mother said. Apparently, Some problems were reported in another town, and the store owners got scared that might happen in Centerville. They showed some pictures on TV of all the people breaking the big glass windows of a supermarket with baseball bats and taking stuff right out of the... Let's not talk about that now, Mrs. Bailey said to Daniel. She nodded her head toward Denise, who was staring at her bowl of soup. In a few days, this will all blow over and things will be back to normal. Yeah, right. I don't see what a bunch of dumb problems these little countries are fighting about have to do with us, Denise said. Who cares if they blow themselves up? One problem is oil, Daniel said. The Middle East countries are the main suppliers. Since they often stop the oil, the newsman on TV said it's causing a chain reaction of panic in other places. He said something about a debt bubble bursting that the government can't fix. Mrs. Bailey nodded her head and looked anxious. She appeared lost in thoughts. There have been several oil crises, but no one thought it could get this bad, though, she said. This one has triggered other things, they say, like the debt of the smaller nations and so on. But the bigger problem is the banks and money, Daniel said. I was reading in the newspaper how the banking system is all connected. It said it's like a house of cards, and then when the bottom card falls, all the other cards come crashing. Let's not talk about that now, Daniel, Mrs. Bailey said. All this talk of war and just gives me the creeps. The people who know about these things will work it out. Yeah, right. The government is taking measures. They'll make things all better. The government will make things all better for you, poor little sheep and idiots, turkey farm inmates. The government will make things better again. And large companies like Goliath Industries are helping too. In fact, Goliath is a leader in a whole group of major companies that is called Order. Those businesses are taking a leading role in trying to keep things from getting out of hand. Order brings order, they are saying. I wonder if it will work, Daniel said. I was reading that this century has had more wars and casualties than all the previous centuries combined. They also said that we have enough bombs to blow the whole world up more than... Let's not talk about it, Mrs. Bailey said. She turned to Daniel. You will scare Denise. Like, who cares? And yourself and me. Our money is safe thanks to Goliath Industries. Taking that job with them was one of the best things I ever did. Let me tell you. They're a really, really big company, aren't they, Daniel said. In 15 years, they bought up hundreds of small companies so that they're one of the biggest companies in the world now. They mentioned Goliath Industries in the newspapers, too. They're in the top 10 in size, Mrs. Bailey said, and that's security, so we shouldn't worry about the banks or bombs or any of that, should we? Not me, Denise said, but Daniel didn't answer. Why don't you go watch a little TV and just stay inside for the rest of the day, Mrs. Bailey said. Only scary stuff is on TV, Denise grunted, and I can't even call friends on because the phones are messed up. Everything is busy or you don't get any sound. I know, Mrs. Bailey said, people are just a little frightened right now. Things will be better tomorrow once the shock wears off. I've got to go back to the factory. We've got plenty of security with Goliath Industries. In fact, we've been given the go-ahead to open earlier than planned so we can start production. We've got enough orders to last us 2 years already, Mr. Cutright said. He doesn't seem the least bit worried. The government needs the defense weapons and stuff Goliath is making, don't they? Daniel said. No wonder your boss is happy. I didn't say he was happy, Daniel, Mrs. Bailey replied. Don't be so critical. Like I said, if we were headed for hard times, Goliath is a place to be working. They're big enough to weather any storm. Centerville's lucky to have them in this town. Very lucky, yeah, right. Denise left the table quietly. She had only taken 2 bites from her sandwich. Daniel heard her running up the stairs. Save that sandwich in the refrigerator, Mrs. Bailey instructed Daniel. We may eat it later. I'll go talk to Denise. But even though Daniel felt puzzled and somewhat scared by all the recent changes in the news, he was still hungry. He ate his lunch, then put the rest of the leftover food in the refrigerator. His mother usually just throw leftover food down the garbage disposal. Typical idiot. Mrs. Bailey came downstairs 15 minutes later. She gave Daniel a long, silent hug. You stay around the house, she said, and just to be sure, safe, keep the doors locked. Denise is taking a nap. I may be home a little late, but I'll try to get through on the phone if that happens. Okay, Daniel said. I can watch TV or read or ride my Spirit Flyer. Just kidding. Just don't let Denise watch news that's too violent, Mrs. Bailey said. And don't believe everything you hear. Mrs. Bailey walked quickly out the front door. Daniel locked it. Then he checked the back door and locked it and the garage doors. Locking all the doors made Daniel feel like he was on an important adventure, almost. For a while he pretended he was a character in a book, like someone in the middle of a war zone protecting his house from the enemy. Somehow it helped him make it all seem like a game. He got a big glass of iced tea and a book. Then he turned on the television with the remote control. The news people looked serious and were still talking. Daniel looked down at his book on the wildlife of North America and sipped his tea. Occasionally he would glance up at the television screen when something exciting was happening. They repeated the same pictures of the people breaking into a supermarket several times. They also showed the pictures of crowds of people in front of banks in different cities all over the world. All the bad news on television and in the newspaper had always seemed far away and distant, but the closed Centerville Bank and other stores had brought the news to his town, Daniel. He wondered whether or not there would be soccer practice tonight. I wonder if people lose points on the big board if they don't practice, he asked himself. That's when he remembered the point system and the warnings that Kramer children had spoken of on Saturday night. He would have gone back downtown to see if the toy store was open, but I would have to wait. He thought. He turned the TV back on. There was a picture of a building on fire, blazing out of control. Da-da-da-da-da. There you go. Okay, Gaddy Anton. Well, let's see who's on here. Yo, yo, yo. All right, good night.